You work harder every year. Why doesn't your money stay? Hook. A question that should never exist. You wake up earlier than you used to. You work longer hours than your parents ever did. You answer messages at night, on weekends, even on vacation. You upgrade your skills. You chase promotions. You do everything you were told would lead to stability. Yet somehow, your money disappears faster than ever. Not because you're careless. Not because you're irresponsible. Not because you don't know how to budget. Here's the mystery that shouldn't exist in a modern economy if productivity is higher than ever. If technology makes work more efficient, why does life feel more expensive every single year? Why does earning more never feel like keeping more? Tonight, we're not talking about motivation. We're not selling hustle culture. We're not blaming individuals. We're uncovering a system-level story, one that quietly explains why working harder stopped being enough. And once you see it, you'll understand why your money doesn't stay. Setting the stage. When work and reward were connected for most of human history, work and reward were directly linked. If you produced more, you lived better. If societies became more productive, people prospered together, even in the early industrial age. This relationship still held. From the 1940s to the early 1970s, productivity rose, wages rose, living standards improved. One income could support a family, savings actually grew over time. Money represented stored effort. Work had meaning beyond survival. But this balance didn't break overnight. It fractured slowly, hidden behind progress, policy, and promises. And it all started with a decision most people never learned about in school. Origins. When money changed its nature in the early 20th century, governments faced a problem. Wars were becoming massive and expensive. Populations were growing. Economies needed flexibility. The old system, money tightly linked to physical assets like gold, was restrictive. So, central banks stepped in. At first, money was partially backed by gold, then loosely backed. Then, in 1971, something historic happened. The final link between money and gold was severed. Money became fiat, backed not by anything tangible, but by trust. This decision solved short-term problems. Governments could spend without raising taxes. Central banks could respond to crises quickly. It sounded like progress. But it quietly changed what money was. Money stopped being a stable store of value. It became a tool, adjustable, expandable, political. And that change reshaped everything that followed. The rise when debt replaced paychecks once money could be created more freely. A new economic model took over. Instead of wages rising to match productivity, debt filled the gap. Couldn't afford a home? Mortgage? Couldn't afford education? Student loans? Couldn't afford daily life? Credit cards? On paper, living standards continued to rise. But the growth wasn't coming from income. It was coming from borrowing. At the same time, money creation began flowing unevenly. New money entered the economy through banks, financial markets, government spending, and it didn't spread equally. It concentrated in stocks, real estate, financial assets. If you owned assets, your wealth multiplied. If you lived on wages, you fell behind. Not because you failed, but because the system shifted rewards away from labor. Cause and effect. How hard work lost its power. Here's the mechanism most people never see. Technology increased productivity. Workers produced more value per hour. Wages stopped tracking productivity. Profits grew faster than paychecks. Money creation inflated assets. First, housing and stocks surged. Cost of living followed asset prices. Rent, healthcare, education skyrocketed. Debt replaced wage growth. Borrowing became normal. So you worked harder, but your effort didn't vanish. Its value was redirected upward. The game didn't end. The rules changed. The breaking point when the system shows cracks. Every system built on imbalance eventually faces stress. For this one, stress appeared repeatedly. 1970s inflation, 2000 dot-com crash, 2008 financial crises. Each time, the response followed the same script. Lower interest rates inject liquidity, bail out institutions. These actions prevented collapse. But they also deepened the core problem. Asset owners were protected. Workers absorbed the cost through inflation, job insecurity, reduced purchasing power. The system survived, but fairness didn't. The fallout, why life feels heavier today. Fast forward to today. You're told inflation is temporary. Just work smarter. Learn new skills. But none of that explains why. Housing eats half your income. Healthcare feels unaffordable. Saving feels impossible. The uncomfortable truth is this. The modern economy requires constant spending to survive. Savings slow it down. Debt keeps it moving. So incentives quietly push you to spend now, borrow more, save less, not by force, by design. Failed fixes. Why nothing seems to solve. IT governments propose solutions. Stimulus checks, wage increases, tax credits. These help temporarily, but they don't fix the root cause. Why? Because when new money enters the system, asset prices adjust immediately, wages lag behind by the time your paycheck increases. Prices already moved. You're always catching up, never arriving. The treadmill speeds up. You keep running. Modern parallels the pattern, repeats globally. Look around the world and the pattern is the same. Younger generations work more, but own less. Two incomes. Replace one. Retirement is delayed. Debt becomes lifelong. Different countries. Same outcome. This isn't coincidence. It's structural. The system isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed. The reveal. Answering the original question. So why doesn't your money stay? Because modern money is no longer a stable store of effort. It's a moving unit inside a system that rewards ownership over labor, prioritizes growth over stability, depends on inflation to function. You're not bad with money. Money changed. And no one explained the new rules. 3 clear takeaways. Hard work alone no longer guarantees security. Understanding the system matters as much as effort. Inflation isn't an accident. It's structural. It keeps debt-based systems alive. Financial awareness is no longer optional. Ignoring the system doesn't protect you from it. A warning and an open thought. The greatest danger isn't collapse. It's normalization. A future where working harder forever feels necessary and still isn't enough. The question isn't whether the system will change. The question is, will you understand it before it does? Call to action. Natural and honest. If this helped you see money differently, subscribe for deeper stories about how financial systems really work. No hype, no fear, just clarity. Because once you understand why your money doesn't stay, you can finally decide what to do next.